But news outlets across the globe, including the New York Times and Fox News, have discovered that Americans have been on the ground in Libya for weeks. Here now on the Fed and Libya and lies the government tells us are two of Congress's most principal members, Texas Republican Congressman Ron Paul and Ohio Democratic Congressman Dennis Kucinich. Congressman Paul, Congressman Kucinich, welcome here. Let me encourage each of you to jump in on this so we can have a conversation amongst the three of us. But to Congressman Kucinich first, why are we dropping bombs on Libya? Is it oil? Is it military adventurism? Is it part of some grand scheme? Is it George Bush's third term? Why do you think we're there?
I don't know that we can even get to that until we start by insisting that the president had no right to do that, that what he did was against the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, that it exceeds even the War Powers Act, that it exceeds the UN mandate, and that we have a presidency right now that is dangerously close to being an imperial presidency, because what the White House is doing essentially is nullifying the role that Congress has.
What is the Congress going to do about this, Congressman Paul? I mean, is there anger? Is there angst there that he went to a bunch of Arab dictators called the Arab League, that he went to a bunch of NATO ministers in Belgium and a bunch of one-worlders on the Upper East Side of New York City called the UN Security Council, but never went to the Congress?
Well, more than usual, and that's good, but I don't think there's enough. I don't see our leadership on either side of the aisle demanding that we do something and bring it to a vote and show exactly where we stand on this. So I'm afraid we'll slip into another war again, and that's very unfortunate for us. But as far as why we're there, it's a little bit more difficult, choosing on motives. But I think it's a form of neocolonialism, and that is part of the the neocons' effort to remake the Middle East and the whole world. You ask about troops in Libya, and they fib or lie about that, whether the troops are, the CIA, they're not troops, and yet they're the ones who launch the bombs and the missiles. But we have troops in so many places, so it's the philosophy of intervention. We have troops in probably 130 countries, 900 bases around the world. That's where the real problem is and some people who are now saying, well, Libya is different and we shouldn't do it, and that's very good, but it's sometimes it's partisanship. Well, the way we're doing this isn't as good as the way George Bush did it. So we have to think strategically as well as the process that we go through.
Congressman Kucinich, I'm a little bewildered here about the silence of the leadership in both parties and in both houses. Could it be that Gaddafi has been so demonized that they really want him taken out? Could it be that they really want this war? Could it be that the big government party, which is most of the Democrats and most of the Republicans, like war after all, and so they want to look the other way when the president violates the Constitution and drops bombs on people?
I'm not sure, but I will tell you this, that as a Democrat, I feel that our leadership had the obligation, the minute that they were notified by President Obama, that he intended to participate in an attack on Libya. Our leadership had a responsibility right there to tell the president, wait a minute, Mr. President, you cannot do that without going to the entire Congress. So this is the complaint that I have about the Democratic leadership. And frankly, as members of Congress, it's not really our right to give away. That right was put in the Constitution, at the beginning of this country, so that there'd be checks and balances, and we're moving those checks and balances aside in favor of an imperial presidency.
Congressman Paul, I agree entirely with Congressman Kucinich. This is how freedom is lost. The president bombs and kills, takes power away from the Congress under the Constitution. The Congress does nothing about it, and then future presidents use what this president is doing as precedent for that behavior. This is how the Constitution is manipulated. This is how freedom is lost and lives are lost, and there are no consequences.
Yeah, and it's been going on for a long time. It's probably the most amazing things. The founders would be dumbfounded as to how easily the Congress gives up its responsibilities and prerogatives, and yet we continue to do it. And too many, it isn't sort of a complacency and a lack of an effort, but sometimes it's positive. Members of Congress and leadership have wanted to give these responsibilities because they believe in the strong executive. So we, in many ways, have given up on the belief of limited government and smaller government and regional government, and we have gone toward the empire and a strong executive branch, and that is very, very discouraging. And unless we break through on this, we're in big trouble. And the only place that Dennis and I have talked about is we do get a lot of encouragement from our young people. We're holding a little bit of optimism.
Right. Switching.
I want to add one thing here.
Go ahead.
What Congressman Paul says about the reach for empire is absolutely right. But what we have to keep in mind is that empire is a big ticket item, and it's really beyond our ability to pay for it.
Absolutely. Switching gears, gentlemen, as a result of litigation filed by Bloomberg and Fox Business, for the first time in history, the Federal Reserve was forced to cough up documents that it mightily resisted and tried very hard to keep secret. Congressman Kucinich, were you surprised that in a 3-month period, the Federal Reserve Bank, created out of thin air and distributed to banks and businesses and governments across the globe, $3.3 trillion, more money than the annual budget of the United States of America, and about 25% of America's gross national product, gone, created and out there in 2 months?
Well, Congressman Paul and I have been talking about this for years. The lack of accountability on the part of the Fed, no transparency, the fact that they can, through a device called quantitative easing, create money out of nothing, and then that ends up inevitably, in one way, shape, or form, being backed by the full faith and credit of the United States. The Fed clearly is out of control. We have to